Nurturing talent. It's interesting. This is our 8th year in a row that we've had kids in top class for theatre studies. So we're doing pretty well. And every year I say to the following class, first day, one of you will be a top class. It can be any of you. And here's the thing, nurturing talent. I did cabaret last year as the extracurricular. We do 6 productions, but one of the extracurricular productions, and the lead female, I had no idea she could sing. So I think if you go, okay, these 5 kids are really talented and these 10 kids are really nice, but you know, they're not so talented. I don't know what talent is. What is talent? Talent can be really fabulous writing a performance analysis and nailing the written exam at the end of the year. Or talent can be able to listen to the other kids and come to the teacher and go, listen, so-and-so's having a hard day, you might need to just a bit of TLC there. What's talent? Is it acting talent? Is it writing talent? Is it just talent being a nice person? And extracurricular, most of my kids do theatre, assume they're going to be involved in shows, because I tell them the more extracurricular stuff you do, the more you will be comfortable with in your own work, and you'll be having a greater understanding of how theatre works and the operational content of the other stage crafts involved other than acting. Do I produce actors? I've had several go through NIDA. I've got one in there, NIDA at the moment. I've got one just got accepted to VCA. But I don't train actors. Ultimately, from year 7, they start working towards an ATAR, because that's what I get paid for. A number of people think I get every crazy in the school coming into the drama space, whether it's a class show or the extracurricular show. I find it fascinating that the drama teacher becomes a welfare officer, because you can bring a kid out of themselves and teach them confidence. Yeah, I get a lot of that. Point being, yeah, I do a big launch. We have lots of kids come, which we're having on Thursday. We feed them. That always brings any kid in. And we go, look, this is open to everybody. And some kids, we have more than, I'm not the only director. We have several people directing. So kids have a choice of who they work with if they're not comfortable with me. Kids come into any co-curricular activity that I run, and they will become immediately part of the family. Whether they're part of a class or not, I have a senior kid, mentor them. Last year I had a fascinating, really off the spectrum kid doing it because his stepmother thought it'd be nice to bring him out of himself. And he played an SS guard, and every night he'd come on with a different costume on because he couldn't find his, and a different glove or a different hat. He is now doing theatre studies. So he was accepted. Kids are way more forgiving, I think, of each other. We don't have competition. The kids actually choose the class show. They all vote on the cast. So my Macbeth, they all audition in front of each other. Then we have a secret ballot. Everyone in the class votes. I don't vote unless I have to. I am with perhaps the musical director and an ex-student who comes in to assistant direct, are the only 3 that choose the cast for the co-curricular show, and that can take me 6 weeks. And there's usually I'm gutless enough to pin it up the day before the end of term 1 and then run away so parents and students can't cry at me, because every kid's your own, and I know my own kid kept I don't think she ever did a lead role in her whole life at school. It's heartbreaking for a parent, I guess it, particularly when they're so talented at home. And the thing is, I don't feel there's a lot of competition because we address that immediately. And it's the kids get callbacks. Culturally, they know how it works. They know I don't have favourites because every year I will actively try and put a student who doesn't do the subject in a lead role and balance it that way. And any kid that doesn't get a lead role, I will sit and talk to for about 15-20 minutes after before I put the list up or after they've found out. So tension, the kids are there to, it's part of a family, it's part of a team, they're there for a goal. And the goal is the production. So my kids are fairly selfless, I think. You never know what's going on behind doors, but that's what I think anyway.
This is also a bit of a hard one because there's a lot of competition in my school and in our class, our theatre classes. Often the students are competitive about marks, and they're competitive about who's more talented, and they're competitive about their monologues, and they see each other as competition, and no matter what sort of environment you try and create, and as much as you tell them that they're not competing with each other and that we're trying to get the best out of each of them, you can't avoid competition in an academic school where they're all trying to get 99.95. It just doesn't, you can't avoid it. In terms of talent and like making sure that the talented people get the best out of them, and also to get the best out of the ones that aren't as talented, I think they're both of those things are equally as important as each other. And I love both students equally. I feel like working with the really talented and the kids who struggle but really want it is the most amazing experience, both. I don't find the balance so hard. I think that if you have high expectations of your class, and you assume that they're all enthusiastic, which you hope that they will be once you start showing them how great things can be. If they're all enthusiastic and you can get them on board, I feel like you can have high expectations of all of them. So they all, like, even if they're not all equally as talented, they'll all come up and they'll all reach their full potential. I mean, I had a boy once who was considered by the school to be a bit of a school refuser. He was a bit of a stoner, didn't really like to go to class much, and he took drama in Year 11 and theatre in Year 12, and he took it as a sort of out. I don't think he even really knew whether he was good at it or not. I think he just took it because he thought it was going to be easy, which wasn't the case. And he grew to really love it, and even though he was never that good at it, he was good enough, and he found something that he was really passionate about and that he loved, and he loved the work of analysing the character and pulling it apart and figuring out, you know, how to play a role and where it came from, and reading the role of Frankenstein and the creature, and he thought it was the most fascinating thing he'd ever done. And this was a kid that didn't really like to read and didn't really like to participate, and sort of started the year off sitting in the corner and ended up being the person that always wanted to get up and do stuff. And even though he wasn't the most, and he got a B+ in his monologue, but he was still so proud of himself and proud of the work he'd done. And I felt like he accomplished so much in the time that he worked and that we had together. It was just worth it. It was just worth, it gave him self-worth, and it made him feel like there was something he was good at. Even if he wasn't brilliant at it, he felt like he was good at it. So I think making sure the kids know that you think they're good at things, and that you think they're capable of things, and that they've got the potential to do well and to do their best, and that just because they don't get an A+, it doesn't mean they're not great. And that they can be talented in all sorts of areas, and some of them are great with design, and some of them are amazing actors, and some of them are shy, but they come out of themselves, and that's just a beautiful thing to see. I find the balance of working with the talented and the not as talented one of the most beautiful things about the job, because getting the most out of both is the best part of teaching, I think.
Okay, so in terms of the tension between nurturing talent and encouraging participation, I see them as being the same thing. So that I'm always looking to structure for participation at whatever skill level the kid's coming in at. And for a kid who might be naturally gifted in dramatic form, I should be structuring an activity where that kid feels that they can participate as much as a kid who might feel uncomfortable on the floor, or who might be quite limited in terms of their use of expressive skills. So it's about how I'm structuring that task. And I've had the privilege of working with Helen Cahill, who uses applied drama, applied theatre for teaching well-being, and I think that there is a place for that. And because drama is a great way of teaching lots of different subject areas, and sometimes the barriers for participation are well-being issues, and there's another. But I think that well-being is a great byproduct of drama process. So I think if you've structured, sometimes I know that I've structured the lesson well when everyone is participating and everyone is learning to the best of their ability.
And Michael, can you just talk a little bit about the co-curricular program, and whether you have different events that sort of are about, I don't know, based on getting in on talent, or are there other events where it's about just getting involved?
Okay, I get it. So in terms of participation in the co-curricular program, there is, and it's about the limitations of resources in terms of the time and capacity of the teacher to safely be able to involve kids within a project, where there are some kids that we get to say yes to, and there are some kids that we get to say no to, and often it's casting decisions are something that I involve my colleagues with, who normally have to say, you perhaps need to be a little more realistic about the number of children that you can involve in this piece of theatre, because there are all those practical things. When kids turn up for the audition that we run as a part of our program, there's a part of me that sees the actor, and there's a part of me that sees the person, especially because I know these people in their broader school context as well. And honestly, I find that incredibly difficult, and it's never an easy choice. And I've made choices about casting purely based on talent, and I've made decisions based purely on the well-being of the child. Yeah.
Look, I think there's a lot of different strategies for that. I think it's good to set clear expectations about participation, work it into your rubric, work it into your assessment, that actually teamwork or making sure that everyone has an equitable role is part of what you're creating here. But there's always going to be that tension, and I think one of the things I've learned over the course of teaching is that sometimes it's not always about balancing it out and having you really high-skilled, enthusiastic students, one in each group to lead, and then maybe your EAL students who are struggling with language, split and separated. Sometimes it's good to go, right, okay, let's do what teachers aren't supposed to do and put all of the EAL students together and give them some different rules and some different boundaries, and see what they create when it's on their terms, and put all the high flyers together that are really excited and want to kind of challenge themselves, and just see what they can do, and group people in different ways. So I don't think it's necessarily like, oh, let's make it all even and equitable in that sense. I think it's good to mix it up. And in terms of participation, sometimes it's really good to give people different roles to be able to say, okay, in this I want 4 actors and a director, I want 4 actors and a sound designer that's going to apply the sound to it, even at lower years. I think that can be good to kind of encourage people to begin to have a play with things, even if they're not comfortable being front and centre. That's kind of where I've come from anyway.
And what about in the co-curricular life of the school? Are there policies around it, or do you have a particular approach with different events?
I think it depends on the school system, but for us, we've kind of made it really clear that the school productions, you have to audition. It's based on enthusiasm, skill set, who's right for the role, all of those kind of things that feed into it. But house activities, so this is called different things at different schools, but for us it's like house dance and house drama, or like a festival of arts or whatever it might be. It's about participation, it's about inclusion, it's about creating an inclusive environment, promoting the arts to the rest of the school. So one of the things that I did last year when I kind of revamped the rules was to say there has to be a minimum of 20 year 7s involved, or X amount of year 8s, just to kind of address the balance, especially if students are responsible, or captains or leaders are responsible for auditioning or recruiting. So there's different kind of strategies at place there, but to try and be as friendly as possible and encourage, and we use like a drama board to promote things, and to try and get those girls involved and come and audition. Yeah. And that's kind of a really rewarding thing when you go, oh, did you know, guess who turned up to auditions the other day? Yeah, it was Sally, and she's never there, and oh, it's so exciting. So yeah, that's the way I go about things.
So I was the director of the school production last year. It was my first musical production to be involved in, and I said very adamantly that if any kid wants in, they can be in. I have since learned that you really need to choose a production that has like trees or something that you can say, you know what, you can be a tree. So if you're doing a school production, have a think about that first, and pick something that you can have as big or a smaller chorus as you can. But I suppose my point is participation is everything. I think it's really important that kids participate in everything they do in classes. So not just in drama, they should participate in sport, they should if they want to join a chess club, join a chess club. I think it's really important that kids have the ability to participate, want to participate, and they have the opportunity to participate. That said, the thing that made me want to be a drama teacher was teaching acting and character work, and getting someone from not knowing much about acting at all to actually being able to successfully portray a fantastic character. During VCE, that's my favourite part to work on, is the character work and the acting with the students. There are, however, still some kids who chose drama because they needed another class, like to fill up their subjects, and they're not too sure about it. And the kicker I get is when they start off the year saying, oh no, I don't want to do anything. And then by the end of the year, they've got this massive role that they've written for themselves because they actually really enjoy what they're doing. The standard of their work may not be as high as some of the others, but they have moved. And yes, at the end of year 12, how far they move doesn't matter. It's the actual mark they get. Throughout the rest of the 5 years of high school, how much they move is really, really important. And that's actually what my school was what Vel's grades on. Where you started here and now you're here, that's fantastic. Even though you might have to be up there somewhere. So nurturing talent and encouraging participation, they can go hand in hand. I don't think you need to choose one or the other. I don't think you need to prioritise one or the other. It is differentiating your classroom. And you have to do that in any classroom. I think drama is one of the easiest things to differentiate in, especially in performances, because you can have kids who are really good at acting, kids who are not too good at acting in the same piece. Because the kid that doesn't want too many lines, the kid that wants heaps of lines, he'll take some lines off that kid. That's okay. And they'll be able to do what they want and they're happy. And you as the teacher can kind of push them to get better than what they are. But everyone has the opportunity to participate and to further their skills. So it's just differentiating your classroom.
Yeah, look, nurturing talent versus encouraging participation has been a tricky one for me at the school. I find that in class, because a lot of my kids are very low on confidence, a lot of them come from poor English speaking backgrounds, so just the idea of them getting up and speaking in front of other people can be quite intimidating for a lot of them. And a whole bunch of other sort of reasons as well, but confidence has always been a huge problem for them. So encouraging participation is far and away the most important thing for me in my classes. To give you an example, I've had a girl that I've worked on for an entire semester in drama just to get up on stage and perform, and in the end, on the very last day of class, she walked into an empty drama room with the lights off, stood on the stage and walked off again, and that was a win just because she hadn't been able to get even close to that. The idea of getting up on stage was making her cry at times. So that's the sort of confidence issues I'm dealing with some of my kids. Having said that, you get some great kids as well, some kids that are really passionate about it and have enormous talent, and for them to be sitting around and waiting while we try and get these other kids just to get up can be really frustrating for them. So the way I've dealt with it is in class, which particularly in year 7 and 8 where it's compulsory for them to do drama now for a semester. It's all about just participation, and we break it down into as easy, manageable, non-intimidating kind of activities as we need to make everybody in the class feel comfortable, and that can be quite basic and simple. But what I've developed is a really strong extracurricular program for those kids that really want to take it further. We have what's called the Redback Theatre Group, which was started about 10 years ago by a group of year 8 students who really wanted to do more than they were being able to do. I guess seems like a bad way of saying it, but they were being held back by the limitations of the other people in their class when it came to what they wanted to do with drama. So we have a group now that is almost entirely student run. I'm there to guide them and sort of push them towards the right decisions at times. They make the decisions themselves. They have a president and a treasurer and that sort of stuff, and they vote. And they meet once a week. We go out on excursions after hours. They form the backbone of our school production. And that gives them a real chance to sort of expand that at the same time allows me to be not quite so expensive in class and then keep it less intimidating for the other kids in class.